And hey, Mike, how's it going? All right. This is great. This is the webinar on how to grow, how to organize a virtual summit that generates hundreds of leads and sets you up as the category leader. And it's also the inaugural episode of my new podcast, and I'm going to reveal the name right now. It's the AI Marketing Case Studies podcast. And and I know this sounds a little egotistical, but I think I'm going to feature myself as the very first case study, and then after that, I'm going to be interviewing other AI powered marketers who are going to tell me and tell the podcast audience what they've been able to do with AI tools to sort of 10x their results, et cetera. And the reason why I decided to use this as sort of like the first case study is because I don't think I would have really been able to have organized this summit that I'm going to use to teach this topic without the help of kind of really easy to use AI tools, right? So, and Phil, let's make this an interactive session with who we've got over here. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen and kind of share what inspired me to do this. So I was, innocently, let me see. I would say I was innocently watching a video of one of my personal heroes, this sort of marketing guru that I follow. His name is Nathan Barry. He's the CEO and founder of an email marketing tool called ConvertKit, right? So ConvertKit, I would say, is sort of like the leaner, meaner competitor to MailChimp, right? And he has this thing called the Nathan Barry Show. And instead of telling you about what it talks about, I want to play you the first these 2 key minutes of this interview in which he interviews Daryl Westervelt, who organized this thing called the Traditional Skills Summit. And now they're actually about to hold they're about to hold the third annual Traditional Skills Summit. Let me just show you. If you go to schooloftraditionalskills.com, you'll see that they're holding this massive summit from this 23rd to the 27th. It's actually just a full week. I mean, here's the schedule right here. You have pretty much a full day every day from Monday to Friday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, they're basically doing 5 sessions every day, and it's going to be 20. I mean, they essentially have 20 speakers doing 20 sessions. Here's all the speakers. You can tell that these are all homesteaders, right? I'm not a homesteader, but you'll see in a minute what inspired me to do my own virtual summit, and then I'll get into the details about the summit that I just organized. So let's go ahead and give this a listen. This interview, 2 minutes excerpt of this interview where Nathan Barry interviews Daryl Westervelt about how he successfully organized the Traditional Skills Summit. Hold on a second. I gotta actually reshare this because I don't think I shared the audio. Okay, here's let's go ahead and share the audio of this. Okay, here we go. Sharing the audio. Now you're going to be able to hear the. Okay. Okay. Let me know. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
We see the screen with all the icons.
It's your desktop.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it. Here. Then let me just go ahead and share the correct screen. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. You see the screen now with.
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
Talk about a lot is the summit.
Yeah, for School of Traditional Skills.
Yeah. So switching to the other business, this summit, like you built an email list, and how many people attended the summit that you did?
Yeah, so to give a little bit of context, we built the masterclass style company called School of Traditional Skills it was 2 years in planning. So Josh and Carolyn had this vision originally. They're incredible people. If you are even remotely interested in this world, you need to check them out. They're incredible people.
What's their site?
Homesteadingfamily.com. Really lots of great content. They're honestly some of the best people I've ever met in my life, and I really love working with them. But they had this vision for, hey, we want this content and this lifestyle to be able to reach more people. So School of Traditional Skills was born from their vision originally, and they invited me in to be a partner with them in launching this out. So we'd spent a lot of time developing content and had filmed a lot of classes, and we had 9 classes and we wanted to launch it out. And well, how are we going to launch it was number one question. And like at this point, summits have been a thing that have come and gone for a lot of people. Like it was a really cool thing. They're less common. And so we said like, well, what if we tried this? And we call it the Traditional Skills Summit. And so we did a lot. We did affiliate marketing. We did advertising, Facebook, Instagram, other advertising types to try to get as many people to come to this free summit. We took then modified content from the classes that we had developed and had then, it was a streaming of some of that content plus then live Q&A and questions and conversation with the creators. So it was really great. We had 101,000 people join the summit, which was huge. So essentially we launched our company with 101,000 people on our mailing list.
So yeah, the summit's fascinating because it gives you this event to market. Whereas normally what we're used to doing as creators is like, okay, I put out the blog post and I send it to the email list of like 12 people. And then like, it's this methodical process. And the summit has a date to it and it's inherently collaborative because you're pulling together speakers and all of this. And so I guess what I'm curious about is how do you go about putting this together? You know, obviously you have connections in the space, but like that is a huge to go from a business with, I won't say zero audience because, right, like Josh and Carolyn, like they have an audience.
Okay, so so you can see this was a huge undertaking for these guys, for Daryl Vestervelt and the team over at the Traditional Skills School of Traditional Skills. But the premise there that just fascinated me. I mean, I watched the whole 1 hour. I think I've watched the video 3 times over. The premise of what really got me was, number one, it enabled those guys to launch a company that they had been building for 2 years now, right? So they were planning this company. They were planning to launch a company with like 9 classes, 9 courses on traditional skills, homesteading, like for example, jarring, animal husbandry, all this kind of stuff. And they're trying to figure out, well, how are we going to launch this school and monetize it? So they came up with this thing about the summit, right? The other thing that I noticed about what they did is that it was huge. It was this big splash of an event, right? So the whole thing about this is, okay, we're creating a company, or we want to launch a new service, or we've just been growing by, and I'm taking examples of different companies and different people I've spoken to who have companies that they want to gain traction, or they want to launch their company, or they want to go from just being a company that just grows organically through word of mouth, right? Which was the case with the summit that I organized on behalf of my client. And so they're saying, okay, how can we launch this? How can we make a big splash in the marketplace? So doing a huge thing, having that date, like Nathan Barry talked about, having that date that you can invite people to, that you can get people to invite, to put on their calendar, and everything kind of goes to that. And it's just a great way of starting your mailing list, right? And so, I'm sure, you guys are all, kind of bought into or sold on the concept of, the money's in the list, right? So the money's in the list means basically if you have a mailing list of subscribers who are, you send regular, content to them about updates to your product or service, or you send valuable information like how-tos or content, etc. You have a mailing list, and that is your database of potential clients. Maybe clients who have bought from you before, but it's a way of you keeping in touch with them on a regular basis, or maybe they're people that have not become clients, but eventually they'll become clients. You know, they're lurkers. They're people who read your content, but they don't do anything, but maybe something you say a year from now will trigger them to buy something. You know, having a database is better than not having a database, right? So there's all these benefits to creating this summit. The next thing that inspired me, so here I was watching this video about this School of Traditional Skills. I'm a city boy, you know, born in New York City, first 10 years, 11 years of my life. Then I spent six months in Mexico City. Then we moved to London, England. I've never, you know, fed a goat or, you know, helped a cow have a calf or anything like that. So, you know, the whole thing about this summit, the skill, you know, the traditional skill summit was a little esoteric for me. But then I came across another summit, and this was the Hey Creator Summit, right? So the Hey Creator Summit kind of caught my attention because all of a sudden I got an email from a guy that I follow, another guy, Tim Stoddard. Tim Stoddard is the CEO and the owner of copyblogger.com. And I got an email from him in which he was talking about this Hey Creator Summit. So I thought that's interesting. Then I went on LinkedIn and I saw somebody else talking about this Hey Creator Summit. And I started seeing this Hey Creator Summit being promoted by a whole bunch of people that I follow kind of simultaneously. And I'm thinking, that's weird. I'm seeing everybody promoting this summit. How did they get so coordinated? How did it all of a sudden become this thing that I'm seeing everywhere? And then let me share my my screen again, and I'll show you a little excerpt from the Hey Creator Summit, which was again a topic that's a little bit closer to my area because, you know, I'm a creator, I'm a content creator, and I think that's a business that I'm very interested in learning about. So this is one of the talks from the Hey Creator Summit. Again,
Personal philosophy
it was a 5-day summit. They had 20 speakers. It was this massive undertaking, and this is one of the talks.
is essentially the thoughts that guide your words and your actions. And at any given moment, if you're faced with an obstacle or an opportunity, your personal philosophy should empower you to push through and make the right decision. So my personal philosophy is live your legacy. Well, a lot of people, including me, are just really consumed with how they'll be remembered after they're gone, right? Okay. How are people going to talk?
So, you know, the topic of what he's talking about is neither here nor there regarding the topic of this webinar. But just to give you a little excerpt as to how this was done. And again, these two summits were all completely virtual summits. All you do is you sit down at your desk or your dinner table, or you're on your couch with your phone, and you logged in, and you can choose to either watch all 5 days worth of stuff, or you can choose from the agenda which sessions you want to catch, right? So again, this kind of caught my attention. And I finally decided, you know what? I was actually kind of looking around, and there was really no courses. There was really no how-tos about doing a virtual summit, but I really felt like as though I could do this because I had organized what I called mini conferences before. So a mini conference is a 1 day or a half a day thing in which, you know, you invite maybe 7, 8, 6 speakers to come and give little 30-minute talks, 20 minutes of them giving a presentation, and then 10 minutes of Q&A. And I had organized 3 of those before, right? I thought to me, it was fun to organize them. Okay. And I thought, well, a virtual summit is a whole other ball of wax. This is a multi-day thing. You got to get at least 12 to 16 to 20 speakers. You know, it's like herding cats. And so am I going to be able to do something like this? Well, I actually got a client. They're a software development company. They're an outsourcing company out of Mexico. And they're based in Mexico City, but they had a problem. And the problem was that they were putting too many eggs in one basket, or two or three baskets. And what I mean by that is that they were depending for the revenue on just 2 or 3 major clients. You know, these are large corporations in Mexico who would keep on giving them software development projects. You know, that they wanted my client to build an app for this or an app for that, or to integrate this database from Oracle with this ERP from SAP. etc. And I was saying to my client, hey, listen, we got to get away from this depending on 2 or 3 large clients, because what if one of these clients leaves you? You're going to lose half of your revenue. We've got to do something. We got to diversify. Let's start an email campaign to your database. And he said, well, I don't have a database. We have exactly 0 database. We don't have a mailing list. We don't have any kind of a marketing strategy. We don't have a social media strategy except, uploading content on Instagram. And I'm thinking, well, Instagram, that's not where your market is. Your market is on LinkedIn. So I'm thinking, okay, this is a tough challenge I have here. We've got to totally generate a funnel, essentially a funnel of leads, so that we could diversify their customer base, so that they can get away from being dependent on these 2 or 3 large companies to keep on giving them projects for, app creation or building, software, etc. So I suddenly, I kind of remember the traditional skills summit and then the Hey Creator Summit. I'm thinking, could I organize something like this for my client? All right. So I proposed it to him. And the good thing is that my client is one of these, very kind of open-minded people. I've had clients in the software development space before who are engineers, and engineers are very suspicious of marketing. They only think about, ones and zeros, and they only want to talk about proof. They're not about taking risks and doing things that haven't been proven before. But my client was different. He's kind of a very creative type. He actually studied design in school, and then he became a developer, and then he started his company, and now he has a good sized company of about 14 people, mostly developers. So he said, yeah, let's do it. So what I decided to do, and this is the steps for what I did, right? So I'm going to share my screen and show you the steps for how I organized this summit, and then I'll get into the details of each one of these steps. Okay. All right. So again, it's a great way to create a splash. It's a great way to start your mailing list from scratch. And in my case, we went from 0 to 904 subscribers, 904 people in their database. Great way to launch your business, right? Okay. So the premise of the summit is, really the idea for the summit is to, you got to make a big splash. You got to do something that's going to get possibly media attention, right? You got to get something that that can possibly spread virally on social media, or between people sending WhatsApp messages to each other or text messages, or whatever. And you've got to be bold, right? And so that's one of the things that I noticed about organizing this summit, is that we had nothing. We'd never done a summit before, but because of the fact that we declared that we were organizing this big multi-day summit, and in our case, we did it in 3 days. We decided not to do the 5 days like these other guys did that I showed you. But still, 3 days is a pretty big undertaking, right? That's kind of a marathon summit, a marathon online digital summit, and so if you're going to go out there and say, we're organizing this 16 speaker 3-day summit, that's bold. Nobody's going to be as bold as you. So you can go out there with this sort of like this confidence that you're doing this. And so what I decided to do was, first of all, the steps for launching the summit is figured out, first of all, what is the category that we wanted to do the summit in, right? So in the case of my clients, what we decided to do was we decided to do a summit around AI. What's new, right? Everybody's talking about AI, but in very practical terms, and getting beyond the hype and getting to the practical thing. What my client decided to do is he decided to put this stake in the ground and say, look, we can build you custom application for your company. We can build you a software application to interact with your clients or to manage your backend and make your operations more efficient. But we're going to implement AI to help you be even more efficient, right? So what we decided to do was to say, okay, let's create this concept called the AI Smart concept, right? And the whole premise was, we're helping you become an AI smart company, right? So you're not only going to be a company that's empowered by software, right? You're going to be a company that's empowered by AI empowered software, right? So, we had sessions focused on retailers and their supply chain and how they can use AI to optimize their supply chain so they can never run out of inventory, like the AI, like the toilet paper shortage we had during COVID. And we can help them optimize their inventory so they never have to overstock items that they thought were going to be popular and then nobody ever bought the items before, right? So, and then we were also talking to education companies, universities and online schools about how they can use AI to tailor their content to their students, or how they can tell if their students are going to drop off because they're not really logging in to look at the lessons and they might lose a student, and what can they do to remediate that. And then we were talking to manufacturers about how they can use AI to reduce the maintenance costs on their machinery, all this kind of stuff. But the whole concept was the AI smart concept that was sort of like saying, okay, this is a new category we're creating, right? So I think that's the first thing you got to think about when you want to launch a new product, a new company or something. You got to think about what category do you want to establish for yourself, or what category do you want to become a dominant player in, right? So whether you want to play in an existing category or whether you want to design a new category. And I think some of y'all actually already have my book in which I talk about category design. And I think that this is organizing a summit is a great way of sort of making a splash in the marketplace with a new category that you want to design, right? So after you decide on the category, what you also want to do is you want to create the initial messaging and design for your summit, right? So I think this is key. I think, instead of putting the cart before the horse and start inviting speakers and start inviting people, you got to have the sort of like the design. And I want to show you some of the design concepts that luckily my client they have a couple of designers on staff. And this one girl, her name is Montserrat. She did, I kind of, what I did was I basically used AI, first of all, to come up with the concept for the messaging. So I told them, okay, we want to write, I went to Claude, actually. Do y'all remember, or are y'all familiar with Claude? Claude is like is one of the competitors of ChatGPT, right? So I went to Claude, and so just like with ChatGPT, you just type in things that you want Claude to give you the answer to, or you want to create some copy or whatever. So what I did was I sort of freestyle wrote in Claude. I could have done this in ChatGPT. I said, look, we're going to organize this 3-day summit in September, and it's going to be all about becoming an AI smart company. And so I basically freestyle wrote what I was thinking about in my head, as if I was writing a note to a secretary or to a personal assistant, etc. So I said, look, our idea for the summit is that we're going to create content with invited speakers focused on small and medium-sized businesses, on how they can empower their company with software that's empowered by AI, right? And this will enable small, medium-sized companies to become more agile and to be able to compete with large companies out there, and to be able to essentially, play with the big boys, for want of a better term, because they have applications that are powered by AI. And the summit is going to be a 3-day summit. We're going to have speakers that are going to talk about how to control how to manage inventory, how to optimize your supply chain, how to optimize your manufacturing operations, how to engage your customers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it was amazing. Claude, and ChatGPT could have done the same thing, essentially gave me all the copy for the website of the conference, right? And then what I did was I took that copy and I gave it to our designer, and she came up with some of these very nice designs, right? And so what she did was she did a mock-up. Let me open up the design so you can see what she did. Okay. Hurry up and wait. Okay, let me put it up in the field of view. Okay, it's all in Spanish, but that was the like the bottom part of the website. Let me see if this is okay, this is so what she did was she did a mock-up of the website using the content that that the AI tool Claude.ai created for me. Okay. Let me see if I have some of the other. Okay, here we go. I'm going to show you a summary of all these different numbers about what so you can see that what our designer did was to put together sort of like a mock-up of the website so that we can give this a little vision that me and my client had in our heads. We can give it form, right? And what I think is so fascinating about this is that this was literally just an idea in my head. You know, what if we create a 3-day 16 speaker conference, right? And then from that idea, I went to ChatGPT, or in actually this case, it was Claude, and I did a sort of stream of consciousness typing in the little prompt space. And then the AI gave me the text for the website for the conference. And I don't know why it's taking so long. Here we go. Let me try that. Oh, here we go. And then when I gave the text to the designer, then she came up with these designs. So let me translate this for you. AI Smart Summit, power your SMB with artificial intelligence and data. Basically, right here, what this says is multiply your results by 10x, drive your growth with applied and artificial intelligence, and become the thought leader of your industry, right? So register now and transform your company 4th to 6th of September, 100% virtual. So she did this mock-up, and that's how I was able to get buy-in from other executives within the company. So my client, his business partner, his operations manager, and then some of the other people who were there to help me out. So it's just the designer and the website creator. And then what we did was we created a website. I mean, I had help with the website, but let me show you another website that I just created 2 days ago in 15 minutes. This is the website for my new podcast, which I created with AI, right? So I actually used WordPress. I installed a premium theme called Astra. I didn't actually pay for the pro version of it. I just installed the free version of it. And it says, do you want to get started manually the traditional way, or do you want AI to help you? I said, let's get AI to help me. And so it asked me, brought me through a series of questions. And I basically said, okay, give me a 100-word description of your website. What are the services you're offering? So I talked about the AI marketing studies, case studies, podcasts, et cetera. And then boom, it gave me this website. I actually had to change the headline, et cetera. But what I'm saying is that even though I had help in creating the website for the summit from my client's company, this could easily be done by using WordPress and the Astra theme, and getting the Astra theme to just ask you a few questions. And then it automatically designs a website for you, and you can go in and you can customize it essentially. Okay. So that's what we did first. Before we actually invited anybody to be a speaker, or before we invited anybody to come and register, I decided what the category was. We created the initial messaging and design. I got the help of AI to help me come up with the messaging and actually all the copy for the website. And then I got the design girl from my client's company to come up with some of these mock-ups of the website, which you see over here, right? 5 reasons to attend the AI Smart Conference, et cetera. And then finally, it came to the point where we had to actually identify and invite speakers, right? So a little word about speakers. I think one of the things that you have to think about when you're inviting speakers is you got to hit two, I would say two criteria when you're inviting speakers. Hopefully you get both of these criteria in one package, but it's not necessary, right? So the number one criteria is they have to be an expert in the topic that you're talking about, right? The other thing is they have to have an audience, right? They have to be somebody who's popular. And hopefully if you can get both of those in the same package, that's golden, right? So you have a speaker who is an expert in the topic. Maybe they have academic qualifications, maybe they've written books about it, or they're speakers about it, or maybe they're just practitioners out in the field at their companies or their businesses or their organizations doing exactly what you want them to talk about. And so they're experts by the mere fact that they're actually doing it day in and day out, and they've identified an expertise that is recognized by their peers, right? Or they have an audience, right? And so I went to my client and I said, look, I don't live in Mexico. I'm not familiar with the space in Mexico. Do you know of anybody who could fit the bill for the summit that we're organizing? And he said, luckily we do. So we put together a spreadsheet. He said, look, and he wrote down about 20 names of people, including a Mexican senator, this woman who is a senator for the Green Party, believe it or not, in Mexico. And I actually shared the spreadsheet with some of the developers of the company, some of the programmers, and some of the people were like, balking at the list. They would never say yes. Why would they want to say yes to a summit from a small little development company like this? And I was thinking, how cynical. So I came up with an email invitation text. Again, I went to AI and I said, look, please give me the text to invite speakers to come and speak at the AI Smart Summit. And I gave this to my client. My client adjusted the wording a little bit, so it made it sound like as though it was coming from him personally, right? And he had his own voice. He said, Fernando, you know what? You're doing so much already. They know me. I'll just send the email. Give me the copy for the email. I'll send the email. He sent the email to the 20 people that we had identified on the spreadsheet. Lo and behold, all 20 said yes, they would be the speaker, including the Mexican senator, including the head of GS1 in Mexico. GS1, if you're not familiar with them, they're a US-based organization they're the ones that create all the barcodes, all the barcodes you see at all the grocery stores, all the pharmacies, all the convenience stores, every little product that has a barcode that's created by GS1. GS1 has branches all over the world. They have a very big one in Mexico. So he was able to get the head of GS1 Mexico, the senator, all these very important people. And that's where I go back to this whole thing about being bold. Nobody is going to be as bold as you are to go out there and declare, we're going to have this massive summit, 3-day, 5-day summit, 16 speakers. Do you want to jump on the train? You want to jump on the summit train with us and be a speaker? And and I was really kind of, I almost kind of wanted to rub it into the skeptical developer's face and show, look, the senator said yes because he didn't believe that anybody would want to say yes to speaking at our dinky little summit. Well, they said yes. And that's when I realized, well, darn, we have something big here. We have these 20 speakers who have said yes. That was only just the first part of it. But we had these 20 speakers who said yes. And now we have a website, because what we did was we actually created the website for it. And now we got to actually go and put this in place. We got to go out and actually get the speakers to commit to a talk, right? So one thing is getting speakers to say yes. The other thing is to get them to actually give us the name of the speech they're going to give, and to actually create the presentations. And, these people are busy. They have calendars that are filled up, weeks, months in advance, right? So trying to get them to actually create this presentation for our summit, that's a tall order, but they did it. And so what we did was, and this was an idea that my client had, said, Fernando, create a form that we will send to all the speakers so that we can ask them for their bio, so we can ask them for the name of their talk, their email address, and their headshot, right? And so this is what we did. So with Google Forms, this is free. I created this questionnaire that we sent to all the speakers. And basically I got my client to say, okay, can you tell them that your new director of marketing is going to get in contact with them, because they don't know me from Adam, right? So he sent an email inviting them to be speakers, and he said, oh, by the way, my new director of marketing, Fernando Labastida, is going to be sending you an email to follow up and, square away the logistical details. So what we did was I created this, this free questionnaire in which we asked them, tell us a little bit about your topic. What's your email address, right? What's the category of your topic? So we created several categories or tracks, if you will, right? So we had AI to optimize your company operations, predictive analytics so that you can make better decisions, how to integrate AI into your marketing strategy, how to use AI for education, retail, or similar industries, and regulation and policies for AI, et cetera. So we got them to fill all this out, to talk about to describe their talk and to give us their preference for what schedule they would like to be, like if they're going to be off one day or traveling another day, et cetera, and then to upload their photograph, et cetera. And, getting the speakers to go from saying yes to actually filling this out, that's a whole other issue, right? So I sent this out to all those 20 speakers that had said yes. And we had only 3 people fill this out for the first 2 weeks. And I was starting to get really nervous. And this was essentially 5 weeks. We started organizing this before the actual summit. And it was already, it was already 2 weeks in, and we'd only had 3 people fill it out. So I sent them reminders and I said, look, please fill it out. We need to do the website. And so we finally were able to get the website, in which we were able to put the information about the speakers right here. Ponentes or speakers, right? So here's all the speakers, and you can click here, and this is the Mexican senator, by the way. So this is what she essentially filled out in that form. And what they filled out in that form was actually went to a Google Sheet, and the Google Sheet was over here. So we were actually able to collate all of the responses into a Google Sheet, which I then gave to the website development girl to create the website. Okay. And then we created the agenda. And again, this was cool. I want to show you what I did with Claude, because Claude was actually a huge help in helping me to organize this. If I hadn't have been able to have access to Claude and Riverside, I don't know what I would have been able to do. I know we wouldn't have been able to pull this off. Okay. So Claude helped me to create the agenda. Okay. So here we have Monday, the 4th of September. So here's all the time slots. Here's the names or the titles of the presentations and their and the speakers. And we had Thursday and we had Friday. Okay. Now I created the agenda and I handed it to the web design girl for her to put it up there. But what I did with Claude, and let me show you Claude. So here's Claude. Are y'all familiar with Claude at all? Have anybody here used it?
Oh yeah, all of us have.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. So Claude was able to actually come up with the agenda for me. And I had this huge running conversation in Claude for everything related to the summit. Okay. So, you know, all the copy for the summit, all the descriptions, all the video transcripts that we use, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. Okay. So let's get in. Let me show you how Claude came up with the agenda. Okay, so what I did was I actually added this spreadsheet that you have that you see right here, okay? So this spreadsheet right here, I downloaded it as a CSV file, comma separated values file. And then I added it to this, and I gave Claude all the instructions in English, but I told Claude to give me the results in Spanish, right? So what I did was I added the spreadsheet. And I said, look, continuing with this theme of the AI Smart Summit, use the attached CSV spreadsheet to give me the proposed agenda for the conference. The conference will take place September 20. Okay. In column C are the titles of the talks. In column E are the names of the speakers. And in column D are suggestions by the speakers themselves of what times work for them and what don't work for them. Please give me a proposed agenda for the summit, considering that each talk will last about 45 minutes with Q&A for 15 minutes. Each talk with attended Q&A will take up to 1 hour time slots from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Mexico City time, the 4th, 5th, and 6th of September, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So you can see I was getting a little detailed as if I was just, my mindset when talking to Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever is just like I'm talking to an executive assistant, where I'm talking to a VA, right? And so you're giving them detailed instructions, and then they kind of come up with all the organizing thing. And so here's the agenda. So it's amazing how Claude was able to do this. So I gave this to Patty. Patty is the girl who did the website design, and Montserrat is the one who did the graphic design. Gave it to Patty, and she put it up on the website. And so that once we got all the speakers to fill in the questionnaire, to give us all their data, and we had the website pretty much complete, then I could go and do the real promotion for this event, right? So, like I said, we had 5 weeks to organize this. We had a database of 0. And my goal was to get at least 300 people registered, because otherwise the 16 speakers that we had recruited would be disappointed. And they'd think, oh, I'm never going to go speak for those guys again. They don't have anybody in their audience. I was just speaking to crickets. So you can imagine, I was deathly scared that I was going to fail. The whole time I was kind of, my motivation wasn't positive motivation. It was negative motivation. It's like, I don't want this to fail. I want to be able to show this senator and the head of GS1 and all these other really cool speakers that we can bring an audience, right? So the first idea that I had was to, and I had this idea because I had seen this done before. And I knew that people would get excited if they get a little excerpt from things, right? If they can get some content that's sort of like teaser content, right? If they can actually view something that's pretty substantial, maybe even 30 minutes of a preview of a conference talk, then they're going to want to hear more. They're going to get excited about it. They're going to say, well, where can I get more of this? So my idea was, I decided that I was going to start off the promotion of this thing by interviewing all the speakers. And for that, I use this thing called Riverside.fm. Mike, I don't know if do you use Riverside, or what do you use for recording your podcasts?
You'll have to answer your question in a little bit, Fernando. StreamYard, I know they use that Rogue. Casey, you got any other input?
He talks about using Riverside too. They use several things, but I think they do. They are familiar with Riverside.
Okay, yeah, actually, so I used Riverside to record the interviews with the speakers before, as a way to promote the summit, and I used StreamYard to actually do the summit. So that was the cool part of this. So what I did was we had these 16 speakers. Actually, we started off with 12 speakers. Okay. And then as we started getting viral results, as people started sharing this on social media, as they started seeing, and my client gave me access to his personal LinkedIn account. So I would go in as my client and start promoting this and uploading videos, etc. So as people started seeing the videos, all of a sudden we got like a few more people come out and say that they wanted to be speakers, right? So out of the 20 speakers we invited, we ended up actually getting only about 14 speakers. And then we had an additional 3 speakers come and say they wanted to be speakers. We had to turn down one of them, but we kind of created this momentum, if you will. So what I did was I interviewed my client. This is my client right here. And then I interviewed all these other speakers. And I actually wasn't able to get around to interviewing every single speaker. But the beautiful thing, and I'm sure you guys already know about what you can do with Riverside, right? Is that you not only can you interview people, and you have this, this nice recording, which, Riverside does the audio mastering, and it takes out the dead spots, and it can remove background noise, and it can do audio equalization. I mean, it's AI and it's magic, right? But it can also create these little shorts, right? So for each interview, I did, I would say an average of between about 4 and 7 shorts that I uploaded to YouTube as a shorts. And then I gave the social media manager, the girl Montserrat, who's also doubles as a graphic designer. She then uploaded the shorts to Instagram Reels and to Facebook Reels. So we had all this really cool content that we then, were able to use to promote this. And so what I did was we created this YouTube channel from scratch. Again, 5 weeks before the conference, we did not have a YouTube channel. And now we have a YouTube channel with about, more than 80 videos. Okay, hold on one second. Here's our YouTube channel. So the effect that I wanted to get, that I wanted to achieve, is that, okay, we have 74 videos. Okay. So the effect that I wanted to achieve was to pretty much overwhelm the space, overwhelm the social media space. And this is the 3 days of the summit that I was finally able to upload to our YouTube channel. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to sort of overwhelm the environment, if you will, with, full playing videos and with shorts. So here's all the shorts that I created with all the speakers that I interviewed, right? And I think we started getting a trickle of registrations about 4 weeks into the planning, right? But then we started getting a barrage. And then like towards the last week, we just got this huge influx of registrations. And I'll tell you about how we did that. But a lot of the registrations came from viral, just the YouTube algorithm and the Instagram algorithm sharing the shorts from the speakers, right? And so these speakers, so what I was able to do, and I think the beautiful thing about Riverside is that it actually contextually or semantically understands what you're talking about, and it gives you some suggested shorts. Now, obviously, some of the shorts are like unusable because, for example, they would, give me a little 30-second blurb of me talking, and it was just, I didn't want to be featured. I was just interviewing them. So I eliminated those, but it gave me some pretty good blurbs of people saying some really interesting sound bites, including stuff that can be a little controversial. You always want a little bit of controversy in order to kind of create notoriety. And this is the guy that had the biggest pull. He has a huge audience. He's an AI marketer, but he's also very innovative. He knows his stuff. He has a big audience. I think he was one of the ones that single-handedly was able to be responsible for at least a quarter of our audience, right? So we were able to create this huge momentum on LinkedIn. We got all the employees of the of my client's company to reshare everything on LinkedIn. We got this momentum going with the YouTube channel. But then this was the next part is really the part that I think was the most impactful. And I'm sorry, I've just been talking without giving anybody any chance to ask any questions. So feel free to ask any questions about what I'm talking about. But the big thing was getting organizations, influencers, and thought leaders to promote this, right? So when I talked initially about the Hey Creator Summit, right? So let's harken back to the Hey Creator Summit. This is the summit that kind of spurred me to action after I found out and was intrigued about the Traditional Skills Summit. The Hey Creator Summit, I started seeing information about it from several different people that I followed, right? So it wasn't just one guy, it was like 3 or 4 other people. I follow a lot of digital marketing gurus and content marketing people, and it was like they were coordinating it. It was like it was a plot to promote the Hey Creator Summit. And I thought, well, you know what if we can create something similar with my client summit, right? So what I did was even though I don't live, I didn't grow up in Mexico. I'm not really kind of in the environment. I'm not well networked in Mexico. I would say that I'm pretty well networked. And I remember that I knew a woman who was a pretty high profile person within Mexico's largest chamber of commerce, right? So Canacintra is a national level chamber of commerce. It specializes in manufacturing companies, and really that's the backbone of Mexico's economy. If you think about Mexico's economy, you have agriculture, you have oil, and you have small and medium sized manufacturers. It's not just the twin plants, the automobile manufacturers and other stuff, but it's like, Dorito, tortilla chip manufacturers, or, car parts manufacturers, and this and that and the other, right? So they're all over the country. So this woman that I knew, she's a friend of my wife who lives here in Mexico. I'm in Mexico right now. I contacted her and I said, hey, we have this AI Smart Summit we want to promote. We would love, it's perfect for the members of this chamber of commerce. It's perfect for them. How can I get this promoted to Canacintra? So she said, oh, yeah, talk to this guy, Miguel. I'll introduce you. So she introduced me to Miguel. And Miguel, he was a little skeptical at first. And he said, look, if you want me to promote this to the members of Canacintra, to all 32 chapters in all 32 states in the country, you're going to have to brand this as if it's a joint effort. So I talked to my client and say, hey, Ed is my client. Ed, do you mind if we include their logo, really, a really large logo on our website, and say something to the effect that, this Chamber of Commerce is inviting you to join this? And he said, sure, why not? Let's do it. So we didn't have any problem including them as co-organizers, if you will, the major sponsor. They went to town promoting this to all of their members, because basically nobody had ever organized anything like this in Mexico. There's AI stuff all over the place, but they're mostly in person, and there's nothing as big as this. And they didn't have a senator and all these people. Like I said, all the different speakers we had. So we had this Chamber of Commerce, and they said, look, create 5 different flyers that we can use to send through WhatsApp messages, to send in WhatsApp groups, to promote in Facebook groups, to send through email marketing, so that we could send it to the chapter in Jalisco, so the Guadalajara. Well, no, they don't even have a chapter in Jalisco. That's the weird thing. But so we could send it to the Querétaro chapter, the Guanajuato chapter, the Chihuahua chapter, and then they can promote it to their people. So they were huge, right? So this was a partnership. We didn't have to pay them anything. Then another guy just came out of the woodworks. We were sharing this. I was sharing this on my client's LinkedIn profile. And then my clients forwarded an email he got from an old buddy of his from middle school. He said, hey, I went to school with this guy. He lives in Tacoma, Washington now. He works for Microsoft, and he runs a newsletter with 3,500 subscribers. in Spanish about AI. He says he wants to promote this for free. So I said, what? So again, I went to chat to Claude, and I came up with, let me see. I came up with text for him to send on, okay, hold on a second, newsletter. Where's, okay. Write a brief email for the newsletter I've set up. Okay, no, this is not the one. Okay. Anyway, I came up with write me. Oh, this is the one. Write me now a 100 and 150 word promotional blurb based on what the interview with Daniel Blank. I will use this to send to a newsletter operator so that he can use it as advertising for his newsletter to invite his 3,500 subscribers to register for the AI Smart Summit. So I came up with about 3 of these. Basically, I chose, I think, what I thought were the most relevant interviews that I had done. Remember, I went and interviewed all the speakers. So I chose 3 of the most relevant interviews. I used the transcripts to tell Claude to give me blurbs so that this buddy of my clients could include it in his email newsletter. So he did 3 email newsletter sends to his 3,500 subscribers, and we got a bunch of subscribers from them. And then that speaker that I showed you about, the one who got, oh, by the way, this is Miguel, the guy from the Chamber of Commerce. He was very helpful, and plus he became a speaker. But this guy promoted it. And then this woman right here, she's an Instagram influencer and a TikTok influencer about how to use AI for managing your personal brand. She went all out and was promoting this on Instagram, and all these people were promoting it free of charge. I mean, they didn't charge us one bit. And then finally, this guy, his Spanish is so-so. He's an Israeli who moved to Mexico, and he's been very heavily he's been participating in the startup, the tech scene in Mexico, the startup scene, and he has all these not Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups. He's a member of all these WhatsApp groups of entrepreneurs, startup entrepreneurs, technology startup people. And so he started promoting it to his groups. And all of a sudden I started getting this huge influx of subscribers from his thing. And so all of a sudden, from what was a little idea to all these videos that I took of interviews with the speakers, and then all these people started helping. All of a sudden we just started getting, like, the last week, I would say we had about 500 subscribers, 500 registrations. And I remember those first 3 weeks, I was telling Miguel over here, I said, look, my goal is to get 300 registrations. And he said, well, how many do you have so far? And I said, I had to kind of sheepishly confess, I only have about 80 people. He says, we'll get to 300. In fact, I think we'll get to 500. And I said, oh my God, I hope God hears you. We did not get 500. We got 6, 7, 8, 900 people to register. And it was amazing. And the ironic thing about the whole rigmarole was that out of all those 900 people that registered, I would say the most we actually had tuning in at one time was 194 people. Again, they're not paying to attend. And if they're not paying to attend, it doesn't hurt them. They're not losing out on money if they don't attend. But still, that was really good. That was a really good turnout. We had between, like the first day we had 194 people actually live online. And the last day we had a fall off so that we had, I think at the most on the last day, we had the most about 62 people that were actually in attendance. The last thing, and I just want to say this, the last thing we did was I'm thinking, okay, this is a virtual summit. People are not in person. They don't get to go to look at booths in between the sessions. How can we keep them engaged? How can we keep them there from the very first talk that started at 12 to the very last one that started at 4 p.m.? And what I decided to do was I decided to try some like little engagement tricks. And the little engagement tricks involved, so with StreamYard, we did the whole thing in StreamYard. And I don't know if you're familiar with a little rewards feature in StreamYard. the rewards feature is basically you go to StreamYard.com/rewards and you can type in a keyword. So it has to be a hashtag. So, hashtag whatever, AI Smart Summit, or could be hashtag Melvin Hall. And then you tell the people who are in the conference, I said, look, for this session, the keyword is hashtag Melvin Hall. Whenever you type it in the chat, in the conference chat, you'll automatically be registered for the raffle. It's going to be an online raffle. And then at the end of the chat, suppose you're the one giving the chat, Melvin, you say, okay, time for the raffle. So I would share the screen. There's a separate tab I had open on Chrome with the thing. And so I could see how many people actually had registered by typing in the hashtag in the chat. And so we could press a button and it was like a roulette wheel. It would kind of go virtually through all the names until little by little it started slowing down, and then it stopped in one name and you'd get these little confetti celebrating the winner, etc. We did that, and we also did like 2 truths and a lie. So I would introduce each speaker. And so we even do this with a senator, I was like with a politician, you got to be, decorum involved, etc. But, like, give me one lie, 2 truths and 1 lie. So we had to tell, something. And so her thing was, okay, I have 8 pets. I lived for a while in Zurich, Switzerland, and I did this and that and the other. And I think the lie was that and she does cold plunges every morning. And I think the lie was that she had lived in Zurich, Switzerland. But the other thing is she does have 8 pets. And it was like, so that got people. So everybody started getting involved, and it was so amazing. Everybody then started expecting the 2 truths and the lie. And then we had a third engagement thing, was at periodic points throughout the talks, we would ask a multiple choice question about the topic that they were talking about. Right. So it was like, okay, is things like ChatGPT, is it a large language model? Is it predictive analytics, or is it machine learning? Right. And so everybody would give their answers, but the first person that typed in the chat the correct answer, so it's a large language model or it's generative AI, whatever, they would get a prize. Right. So I would ask each one of the speakers to come up with a few free things that that wasn't too costly for them to give away. A lot of them, were able to give away like a free assessment or a free coaching or what have you. But the bottom line about this summit is it succeeded beyond my wildest imagination. My client now has a database of 904 people. Wrangling the speakers is kind of like herding cats, right? Because some of them didn't even respond to my request to interview them. So I actually didn't even get an interview with a couple of them. And I also did tech checks with them. So before the actual summit, I had scheduled little 15-minute sections so that we can make sure they got the technology right. They knew how to use the platform. They knew how to share their screen from StreamYard, and they knew how to, do this and that and the other. 2 of the people never did that. And so, you never know. There's, if, Murphy's Law is always, a factor, a specter in one of these things. And, there was a couple of things that actually went wrong. So for example, one speaker, he actually was, he had been at an appointment somewhere in the middle of Mexico City. And the only place he could come and do his talk was at a coffee shop. And the ambient noise was so loud that it was almost, it was distracting, and almost like it almost completely ruined his talk. But there are people, and this guy is also not a very dynamic speaker. He's very academic, very technical. And so there are people sharing in the comments, hey, the noise is distracting. Can you do something about it? And so I actually, messaged him and I said, hey, I interrupted his talk. I said, hey, can we try and see if you can move to a quieter place? And he said, there's no way you can do it. So we had to live with it. But the interesting thing was there were still a bunch of people who were in the audience who were so interested in his topic. They were just as geeky as him, that at the end of his talk, they were saying, great information. I loved it, etc. Despite the fact that there was all this ambient noise, coming from the baristas and the people moving the plates and all that kind of stuff. So, lessons learned. Number one, you know, with speakers, you got to make sure that they are going to be in a quiet place. And, you know, you gotta, I don't know, there's certain things that you got to make sure that you do with the speakers, such as making sure they're going to be in a quiet place. Number two, if I were to do this again, I would probably get more strategic partners set up beforehand. Because I think if we got 904 registrations, I think we could have probably gotten 1,000 registrations, right? So there was other chambers of commerce that we did not hit. So we did not hit the chamber of commerce that specialized in the retail industry. We did not get the chamber of commerce that specialized, like, so there are certain vertically oriented chambers. We just got the one that was focused on manufacturing, which just so happens to be the largest one. And then I would have probably identified speakers that actually have audiences, because a lot of the speakers were so academic and so such specialists in their topics, but they know nothing about attracting an audience, and they actually weren't marketers. They were, you know, they were technologists. So I probably would have, you know, found a pretty good balance between speakers who were very knowledgeable in their topic, and then speakers with an audience, right? So that we can kind of like have more help with that. But the budget for this was zero. I mean, there was one point when we were talking to a PR firm that, so that we could see if they could get us in front of media outlets and see if we could get us placed in some of the, you know, business publications online. But the budget was, you know, was more than we actually had allotted for this, which was nothing. I was trying to see if my client was going to be able to allot something, maybe something for PR. And he said, yeah, the budget, you know, it's a good price for the PR, but I can't afford it. So I was able to do this for zero. Now, can this work in the United States? Absolutely. I think, you know, I decided to try this in Mexico because it was sort of like a low-hanging fruit. My client already knows all these speakers in Mexico. In the United States, I think this is actually easily doable. You know, as you saw from the Traditional Skills Summit, from the Hey Creator Summit, you know, there are still so many greenfield areas in the United States. I'm working with a client in Chattanooga, Tennessee, who's in the heavy equipment rental space, right? So he rents backhoes and tractors and everything related to heavy construction, right? So, you know, he works with people that rent out, you know, heavy equipment to people manufacturing highways or people manufacturing skyscrapers, et cetera. That's a space that's ready to be disrupted with this kind of stuff, right? You know, manufacturing spaces in the United States. People buying property, you know, investment properties. I take that back. They probably already are doing summits and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, there's this stuff. If we can make it work in Mexico, I think we could definitely make it work in the United States. Granted, in Mexico, this is a very new, you know, if AI is new in the United States, it's definitely new in Mexico, right? So it was a very unique topic. And that's where I think the other lesson learned is, you know, if you want to do this in a sort of a more industrial space, something that's not so cutting edge, you got to have like you got to design a new premise, a new category, something new that you can talk about, even in a traditional industry, that'll get people to attend a 2-day, 3-day, 5-day summit, you know, like what I organized.
Hey, Fernando, this is exciting. Would you do me a favor real quick?
Yeah.
Ask Mike Hamilton if he's ever heard when an idea's time has come, an idea's time has come.
You don't have to ask me that. He literally texted me that earlier, Fernando. But yeah, you don't have to do that. We're all good. We're caught up.
No, Fernando, Mike is the brain. That this idea is.
I gotta go.
You know,
Bye.
He's floated this idea with us, and when I say with us, you know, within a team, and so he's talked about it, and we've put things on the calendar, and then I chickened out, but he's still there banging on it, and so yes, the space is right, and you are a badass bringing this to us. Thanks.
Well, I appreciate it. I was, you know, in that video that I shared at the very beginning. In fact, I'm going to share the URL to that video so you can see it, the one about how they organized the traditional skills summit. The guy who was interviewed, who Daryl Vesterfeld, said, "Oh, summits have kind of come and gone." It's like, wait, not that I've seen. It's like, I guess it's like it's like, the curse of knowledge. If you're involved with summits and you say something like, "Oh, summit," I think summit, the whole idea of summits are kind of gotten old now, but he decided to do it anyway. I'm thinking, well, not in my world. Maybe in your world, and I'm fascinated. I think this is the coolest thing in the world because, it's not the latest and greatest AI. I mean, I used AI. Okay, granted, I used AI to really duplicate my efforts, to multiply my efforts. But at the end of the day, it's just getting people together. You know, it's getting people together. It's digital networking. It's networking, even though it's virtual networking. It's networking. It's people teaching people. Obviously, it's enabled by digital technology, but the digital technology is not the focus. The digital technology is just the enabler, and I think it's really, I think that's the power of podcasts. Mike, I'm speaking to the choir here. Podcasts is just democratizing that access to people from other people, and so I think that's the beauty of a summit.
So
So
what do you want to do?
I've spoken.
What do you want to do with the podcast?
So I'm gonna stop recording here.
Yeah, that's fine. Sure.